Hey, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is my continued journey for video lessons of 2023. Hang out at sciencefantasyfootball.com. Okay, have on a podcast, got lots of articles. My partner in crime, D. Mike, he's got tons of hard hitting material. Please come check us out. I have lots of video lessons extending back to 2021 that I started putting them on our site there. Got tired of writing all this stuff, so I'm going to talk about it, and you can certainly download copies of this and listen uh, if you want. You need to invest some time to do that. If you've heard me before, you know I do get a little harangue on things. Don't mind me. Okay, so uh this is some deeper material using ADP to try to predict the end of the season production of various positions. Certainly use history, right? I don't have a time machine, so this is hopefully giving us a foundation. Reference class forecasting concept, go check out that uh, lesson, but we've got to start somewhere, and this is the only way. As a microbiologist, having uh, been a researcher for 28 years and previous before that publishing papers, training graduate students, etc., writing grants, getting grants, publishing papers, say that probably. So I've been doing data analysis for years, decades. Okay, so just realized I hadn't been doing fantasy football data analysis, but I assure you, I've been doing numerical statistical data analysis for a long time. Okay, so my background. So this is a way to establish some guidelines for us in our drafting based on my diary from last year. I'm taking a big change. Previous years, I had done redrafts starting in May. And last year, I got my butt kicked early, but I crushed it late. So, and I'm talking August, kind of that benchmark time. So I'm planning to do 50 redrafts in August, hitting it hard and fast. I like to do about 50. Uh, I hate to be bored. Right now I'm just doing best ball. It's kind of warming up a little bit. I think I've done about 15 or 16 best ball, and I'm involved in drafting even as we speak. So I suggest at least that's my process. This is what I do. I have one dynasty team, Suck It Dynasty. Okay, and so I let D. Mike, who is a dynasty maven, okay, and he took over my team. I'm a silent partner because I don't know what I'm doing. Apparently, okay. Some of that's tongue in cheek, but some of that is, hey, I want to win. And if I can't do it, I want to find a way to do it. So I'm willing to listen to any and all things. So, rounding background, I got about almost 80 slides here to go over. So it's going to take multiple lessons. Anyway, I always wondered, in a big question, does the public, the ADP, the wisdom of the crowds, does that really foreshadow production of players. Okay. I've done a bunch of ADP lessons previous to this, kind of updated, so you can check that, and I can say that certain positions are different than other positions as far as success of public ADP. Running backs are a little bit more precarious. Wide receivers tend to be a little bit more straightforward and safe. I think people know that and have adapted accordingly. As far as variation and uncertainty, I wanted to try to go a little deeper and try to push the boundaries. Certainly, I haven't seen this research done on it. So let me start by giving abbreviations and some materials and methods. Sometimes on my figures I'll have PS, that means preseason, EOS, end of season, fantasy points per game, PPR. I take the preseason ADP predictions and then follow through at the end of the year what happened end of the season. And that was from 2015 to 22. I have the data, Excel data, use pivot tables. I then get my data and use box and whiskers plots to visualize it. In other words, if all the plots of the different treatment groups are the same, there's no use in going further. If there is some perceived difference, I will use analysis of variance called ANOVA. I then will test each treatments against each other by the Tukey's highest significant difference test. I have done chi-square in one particular situation, so I thought I'd include that. And any kind of current ADPs for 2023 is just what I grabbed from the FFPC site. That's where I'm doing best ball, and I grabbed that. I know it's tied in forward, tied in premium, but it gives us a good idea of where things are at least for me, because that's where I'm going to be playing. It's right in my process. I'm not going to claim to be everything for everybody. So what does some of this data look like? Let's start. Come on. Clicked it. Uh-oh. Okay. What you see is data, and I don't even know what this is. Let me look. Zoom in. I need to zoom in. Can I zoom in? John? Kids? You're saying, well, I couldn't even know that. Look, they don't pay me show breaker. Well, that's not working. Stop here for a second. Okay. Figured it out. The green, the yellow, and the red are the preseason ADP predictions. This is of wide receivers. So I'm doing wide receiver data first. Okay. So what's the second column? Right here, right there, right there. The second column is the end of the season fantasy points per game. I stained or colorized the top 30% and the bottom 30, I think it's 33%, in green or red. So you can see successes and failures just visually. I know it's a lot to keep track of. So I plotted then the complete range from the highest to the lowest. And what you're seeing here is the team specific wide receiver crew or group. I probably should have included that. So what I did was I averaged each team's total wide receivers that I got in my database and got an average. Okay, so the low end number is obviously the whole crew is very highly ranked. The high numbers, the crew as a group is lowly ranked. So I was trying to get a feel for, can we parse out high, medium, and low predicted team wide receiver crews and make some conclusions about who those are and what's going on. In other words, can we dip in the right pools, right? You know, is the soup too hot, too cold, just right? Okay. So I plotted this data. So this is team wide receiver average 2015 to 2022 versus end of the season fantasy points versus the ADP. And I had close to 220 situations, team wide receiver crews, and the dots or the blue dots are the actual crew fantasy point averages that occurred. So predicted, this would be predicted the highest and the lowest crews, and the blue is the end of the season, the actual data. So this is the real data at the end of the years, the 8 years, and this yellow line is the trend. Here you can see the extremes are the very high crews. In other words, we must have had 3 or 4 really nice receivers, certainly 2, and we must have had a bunch of sucky receivers here. Remember, everything's relative. Obviously, if you're in the NFL, you're really great. But compared to each other, don't send me hate mail here. Okay. So you can see the trend kind of hits a plateau. But when I look at it, it looks like around right here where the ADP wide receiver average, the crew average is around 40, we start seeing what I thought was more of a break point here. Certainly anything above 16, you start seeing after that point, we have, what is that? A bunch of crews, but only 3 times did we have any crews above 16 fantasy points. And maybe even the break should be here. But anyway, you could start seeing even above 14, we start seeing a big difference. So I was just trying to cut the cake and see, where does it start changing here? Okay. Where does it start changing? Box plots, box and whiskers can give us that. So in one column, I calculated the end of the season fantasy points from the top ranked crews preseason. So this should probably say top, mid, and bottom preseason, preseasonal team wide receiver ADP average. Okay. A little slow here. So I looked at all 32 teams each year, figured out the highs and lows, divided them roughly into thirds. So it's roughly 11, 11, 10, something like that. And then followed to the end of the season and marked the average fantasy points that multiple crew of wide receivers returned. In other words, invested and returned in fantasy points. Okay. Dogs won't in the door. Yes, I hear you. Let him in. Okay, back. I know I'm probably going a little slow. I want to make sure y'all got this. Did I move this off to the side? Yeah. So, once again, 2015 to 22, each year, I looked at the preseason wide receiver team crew averages. When I'm talking crew, I'm talking all the wide receivers that were ranked in my database. Got an average ADP. Compared then all 32 teams, split it 11, 11, and 10. Followed them to the end, found out what the crew actually produced at the end of the season. Plotted that numbers in those three columns, and we see the green are the top, the mid, and the bottom. So right away, you should see, probably unsurprisingly, and you're saying, well, everybody knows that. Yeah, but do you really? Okay. I know it seems simple in visualization. That's why I do that, is so it does seem simple. Okay. It is clear there appears to be a difference. And notice that means that the public is helping us out. Okay. Instead of being angry at the public or ignoring, let the public tell us what's going on. At least give us a foundation, and then we can make our final decisions. But if we know that there are differences, you would be foolish to expect miracles from the lower ranked crews as a group. There's probably some surprises, but it is rare. And so for anybody to sit there and crow about all of these sleepers, it's amazing how many, almost every player becomes a sleeper at some point if you read it on Twitter. It's a joke, folks. That is not how you do things. Okay. I know they're looking for clicks. Okay. That's why I don't run my mouth on Twitter a lot. Try to stay out of the fray. Anyway, this is what I saw. Okay. So I then use something called the analysis of variance, which is a statistical test that asks the question, is there a difference within these three treatments, three groups? And I highlighted the top, mid, bottom fantasy points. And on average, it was 4 to 30, 30 to 42, 43 up. That kind of was the break point. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. And notice the N is the number of samples, 70, 72, 75. The mean, 13.5 fantasy points at the end, 11.8, almost 9, and 9.6. So right away, if I'm fishing in this pool, the fish are bigger than in that pool, folks. Okay? So for me to believe that this pool is as good as that pool without, just kind of naively just grabbing and not applying anything else is foolish. Okay? We've got to have some foundation. Trick is the mid. And so the ANOVA then continues its journey, and it calculates what we call an F statistic right here. If it's in blue, it means the result is significant. This test, the ANOVA, says there's a difference, at least one difference amongst the three treatments. Could be more than one, but at least one. You're saying, well, what happens if there was no difference? Okay, in other words, even though it looked like it was then the F stat would have been a different result and it would not have been significant. And we could ignore this and move on, saying, and really that would have been interesting because that would have meant that people would have been fooled. There are lots of sleepers and the public's not that good. The fact that it was significant says the public is that good as a group prediction. So to say the public is not good is ignoring the whole landscape. Understand when we get to individual plants right in your field, there can be some big differences, right? There's lots of big ears of corn over here on this plant. Other side of the field, the plant has a small ears. Whatever, I understand, but we're talking the field, okay? The landscape. So now we ask the question, treatment groups. And it turns out all the groups are different. You can see this p-value here, okay, is less than 0.05. 0.01, 0.0, I mean, if it's 5 zeros, that means it's way below 5. So the closest is the high to the mid, and they're still different. So we can reliably parse out, cut, using the public's ADP into big slices of the ADP crews in 2023 and start fishing accordingly, expecting better things in the higher, the lower ADP. And you're saying, well, everybody knows that. But can they tell the difference between the mid and the low? You're telling me that people can cut it that fine? I don't think so. I think this sets us up for some bargains that then we can apply. So, what does 2023 look like? Right now, this is in end of June. Here are the top teams in green, the mid teams, and the bottom teams. Okay? Some of these are the usual suspects, some are not. Okay? Remember, this is the whole crew. It's not individual players. You're probably looking at Buffalo. Buffalo's mid. That's because Diggs is there, but the other members of the crew are lower ranked. In other words, there's a gap. Okay? Versus Miami, you got Hill and Waddle. They're both very highly ranked. Philadelphia, Smith and Brown. Okay? You can see now Cincinnati, right? Chase, Higgins. Okay? You see how this is working. Ayuk and Debo Samuel, San Francisco. Lockett and Metcalf. Okay? Notice Tampa Bay. Godwin and Evans. Is Tampa Bay thought of as some, like, wow, they got a great quarterback? It's Baker Mayfield right now. Who knows who it will be? Yet the public is still saying those wide receivers are pretty good. Are you able to get a discount there? You see, now you get a feeling for where's the discounts, where can I find the bargains. And if you plot the averages here, you plot the averages, I did a box graph and you can see the top, bottom, the mid is in blue. I should have made this in yellow, my bad. But look at the Giants in Houston. They're really bad. Philadelphia and Miami, really good. So everybody's not equal, folks. Okay? So if somebody's telling you they can find sleepers over here, they're really, and if they've got a diary, yeah, the last 8 years I've taken the bottom teams and I'm always finding the best. Well, then you got something. Okay? Take your diary. Just how good are you? Are you significantly better than the public? If you are, you should prosper over a great many teams. You're saying, why don't you do 50 again? Because if you have a small advantage, it is game theory says the more times you play, the more likely as a whole you'll win, right? If you have an advantage in poker, it doesn't make sense to take your whole bankroll and bet on one hand, win or lose. That is not. Game theory would say bet the minimum amount and let a lot of hands play out so you get that advantage, right? You're saying, what if you don't have an advantage? If you lose and it's a losing situation, game theory says you take your bankroll, put it in red or black on the roulette wheel, let it spin. If you win, walk out that casino. That's the only way to deal with a losing ROI in the casino, right? If you're going to play slots, play $100 slot one time, pull it, walk out the door. Because see, the game, they want you to play hundreds of pulls because they'll slowly erode your bankroll. Okay, so decide how you want to live this life. And you say, "Well, having fun." Okay, then it's fun money. Fun money means you can just light it on fire in the street and you don't care. It's not that fun. Well, then you shouldn't be wasting it then. Okay, anyway. And I was just curious about the quarterback averages for 2023 and the wide receiver averages. Public's a little bit skewed up with quarterbacks versus wide receivers. So that's a little bit interesting. They may be overrating versus the crews a little bit. Just wanted to throw that out because we're going to circle back around to this figure here. Okay, and let's see, I don't know where I'm going. Anyway, and the last thing I'll talk about for this is, well, I got one more slide and I got to go. It's 27 minutes. I apologize, but I can run out. 23 positional average quarterbacks versus wide receivers. So I show you the rankings. You've seen the chart below, green, yellow, red. Okay. You've seen the box. But this time I show you the quarterbacks and their distribution. And the purple lines are showing the kind of the range or the box of the quarterback. That's this box here, 36 to 32 ADP. That's right in here. So it's showing the number of quarterbacks above, right? And it's showing the number below that ADP. And here's the wide receivers there between the blue lines. Just kind of, I wanted to see. So if you tab this, check this out. I just did a visual here, and we'll start next time with the second lesson. So the best quarterback teams by ADP are in green, and I broke those up. Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Dallas, Philly are great, and notice the wide receivers, really good on those five. Buffalo and the Chargers, good quarterbacks, but the wide receiver crews are perceived as average or mid. And Kansas City, Mahomes, but look at his wide receivers. They're close to the bottom. Okay? So, we have teams that have supposedly great quarterbacks. I'm not saying they're not. But notice some interesting situations there. Okay? So, how would I deal with that? I think that there may be some WR2 types or some, there may be some bargains there in Buffalo, Chargers, and maybe KC. Maybe bargain. Maybe, quotes. This is the first year I've done it like this, so this is still beta testing. The next box is quarterbacks that are average or mid, and then I broke by wide receivers. Cincinnati, Miami, San Francisco, average quarterback, great wide receivers. Look at the extreme other. The Giants have an average quarterback, but crappy wide receivers. Carolina, Tennessee, Houston. And then the mid are in the middle there. And then the worst quarterback, look at Tampa Bay, but yet look at the wide receivers. So you would predict then by this Rams, Arizona, Atlanta, New England, suck, right? Not sure, but there it is. So this is just a way into June for us to visualize kind of how the public is now seeing. We hadn't had exhibition games. All the free agents, D-Hop, others are still out there. Things are still moving. Things are still happening. Injuries can happen in camp. This is still fluid, right? But this is kind of a snapshot. So think about how you might use this. To me, I like to know where I'm starting from so I can then make other conclusions. Okay, end of this lesson. I think you're starting to get a feel for how deep I'm going here. There's another layer. I don't know if I'm going to talk about that. Got to have my secret stuff. But this is that next layer of the old Shrek onion here, right? Okay, come back. We're having fun.